Alright, YouTube, the Occult Video 78, the Fountain of Youth, El Dorado, the Grail Cup, Ark of the Covenant, all these things, and etc. This is an interesting topic. Now, I will point this out. It's my belief within my own spiritual path that the end result, that is, something you arrive at, is not only unimportant, but in fact negative. It is the journey itself that takes import. That is, for instance, I looked at Satanism and originally thought, well, this is the place for me, but then I grew tired of it. What I realized was that it was just a stepping stone to change my mind, to change my mannerisms, from which I could spring forth and find another stepping stone, and then another, wandering slowly through things, finding new paths to explore. I look at the exploration, not the destination, as being important. You think of, you're going to some, the Grand Canyon or something like that. You have a road trip. You travel a couple thousand miles. You see all sorts of cool stuff along the way. You eat weird foods. You meet weird people. You see other weird sort of sights along the way. You get there and it's a tourist trap, ultimately, for a lot of people. These major theme parks, natural sites around the world, tourist destinations like some city, Paris or something, they're a letdown. It's the journey itself that's actually more interesting than where you've been traveling to. You then take another journey up. It was a letdown. The journey itself was really fun. This has happened in my life. It's probably happened in your life. It's not the destination that matters. That's how I look at the spiritual. That is, I don't think that there's any God up there judging me for my decisions, or any devil waiting to take my soul away if I make the wrong one. So I don't fear exploring whatever the hell I happen to want to explore. I learn about it all. I think about it all, I read about it all, and that's what I do. It's fun, it's entertaining, you get some good spook stories along the way, and it's a good way to live your life. Everything is constantly new. You're always going to find new information, no matter how long you search. It's inexhaustible. You can't possibly witness it all in one lifetime, just as you can never visit all of the settled areas of the world in one lifetime. It'd take too long. Yeah, you could probably explore all of North America in one lifetime, but the entire world, I think it'd be difficult, especially if you're also interested in scuba diving and going down in submarines, or, going to the moon or something. It's going to be kind of difficult for you to do that unless you got the secret of immortality, which is one of these sort of destinations people have looked for so long. The same as sort of Tales of the Grail Cup, or Tales of the Ark, or Tales of El Dorado. They are all the same basic variant of story. That is, the protagonist, whether it's meant to be quasi-historical or outright fiction that's sort of presented as quasi-historical, doesn't, King Arthur versus Indiana Jones sort of adventure. The destination is unimportant. It's what's witnessed along the way. That is, the Grail Cup. Well, I don't believe that there ever was a literal Jesus hung up on a cross at Galilee. Therefore, I don't believe that there's a Grail Cup. But you should search for it anyway if it intrigues you, because it's going to be quite an adventure. You should look into arcane manuscripts. You should talk to different people from different cultures to try to get a lead on it. You should conduct an archaeological dig. Even if you don't know anything about it, you should definitely do that. The same with, like, the Ark of the Covenant. Well, is it in some mountain cave somewhere in the Middle East? Was it taken to Scotland? Is it in Oak Island? Is it in Ethiopia like the priests at Aksum believe? Nobody fucking knows if it ever existed in the first place. Maybe it's in Egypt. Maybe it's in some pyramid that's buried under 1,000 feet of sand we just haven't discovered yet. It doesn't really matter, though. It's the fact that we don't actually have any solid identity on a real ark, or know where it is, or what form it may take, presumably, is what makes it exciting. El Dorado, the city of gold. We still find new ruins all throughout the Mayan regions of the world. It's entirely possible there is some temple out there buried under a mountain of dirt and covered over by rainforest that is made more or less of like solid gold on the inside. A foot of solid gold covering the entire crypt's interior, enough to fill 1,000 ships for all we know. And, until you actually comb every square inch of the rainforest there, you're never going to know for sure whether such a thing exists. Maybe it's down in the Amazon somewhere. It's going to take even longer to search that. Maybe it's buried out in the Sahara somewhere. Maybe there was a waterfront community back when that was a shallow inland sea, and now it's buried under the dunes 20 feet deep. You're going to have to conduct a few surveys, I think. That's what makes it interesting. It's not about the destination. The Fountain of Youth, same thing. All these explorers, spurred on by their zeal, of course, came to the New World, and they immediately began launching off expeditions to find that special source of water that they could drink and it would make them youthful again. But the thing is, they were becoming more youthful just by performing such adventures. They were getting stronger, they were getting more self-aware, they put themselves through trials and tribulations, and many a secondary story was spawned by the actions of these people trying to find such sites. The Lost Dutchman's Mind would come to mind. Many, sort of tall tales of finding all sorts of weird stuff out in the desert stem from the general idea of trying to find this one specifically rich mine that they still haven't found, or that nobody knows they've found. It's full of gold, and full of silver, and full of everything else. There's like pirate treasure there and everything. It doesn't matter whether they ever find it, because as long as people are looking for it, they're having a good time, they're having an adventure, they're expanding their minds, and they're finding other things. They could find the meaning of life. The search for the meaning of life is probably the best sort of metaphorical example of this. Oh, well, I'm trying to find out, why are we here? How were we created? How did the universe form? Look at all of the scientific discoveries that have been made and all the philosophical ruminations penned down by people simply considering this, and then their thoughts sort of spiral off in some other direction. It's great. This is how mankind learns about the cosmos. So it's a good thing. I see these, even where they overlap with Abrahamism, I don't see them as negative. I may say, well, the story is so convoluted and it's a rehash of some older story that had nothing to do with it, or whatever, like we find in Judaism, or certainly Christianity and Islam. The fact that these things may not exist at all and may never have existed in the form generally ascribed to them doesn't matter, because the search for them is still important. So that's just a little bit about sort of these, in general, mythical sites. Then again, we would look and we would say occasionally it turns out it wasn't mythology. You look at Troy. Everyone thought it was mythology. Only now we do know there was a city of Troy. It's actually been found. It did have overwhelming fortifications. It did have a level of sophistication that would have been considered quite high at the time period. We're talking about the Bronze Age in this respect. It did exist. There was a siege of Troy. It did get burned to the ground by invading Greeks. It happened. We would look at the Odyssey. I like to think that the Odyssey, if you read it literally and you followed it around as best you could, you probably would find some of these things had once existed. Scylla and Charybdis, maybe they were talking about some big sinkhole that opened up in the Aegean at one point, swallowed a whole island. Who knows? It can be a fantastic or spiritualized retelling of what we would consider mundane events. That doesn't matter. The island of the lotus eaters. There is such a lotus. It does exist. You can grow it for yourself if you have a tropical climate that's also semi-aquatic. But it does exist. There is a sedative form of lotus flower. It's common in Egypt. It's present in Turkey and some other places, into Pakistan and India, in this general region of the world. It is real. It does exist, and if you eat enough of it, you will probably fall asleep and see weird things. All the witchcraft and tales of weird stuff from the past, we can rationalize it all we want, but as long as those stories are present, they will continuously be reinterpreted, expanding the human consciousness, providing insight, and providing entertainment for people. That is, I believe, objectively good for mankind. That's about all. Peace out.